Good evening and welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustments regular meeting for November 2024. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 p.m. We do have a quorum of 4 members and 1 alternate. And our agenda today will consist of the approval of minutes, our regular agenda, and I would like to table our third item, which is VARZ 24-23, special exception and variance for the development of a new building at the Alice Street Water Plant Facility. I would like to table that until December 2024. And just to let you know the format, after the public hearing order, the purpose of the hearing, we will have a staff report, we will have an applicant presentation, then we will have persons wishing to speak for or against, then we will have the staff and applicant discussion, and then we will have consideration and possible action. So for the first order on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion for the approval of the October 2024 minutes?
Make a motion to approve ZBA meeting minutes from October 3rd, 2024.
It's been motioned. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been motioned and second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. We'd like to move into our regular agenda. This is a consideration and possible action for VARZ 24-20, special exception to plat a property with existing nonconformities. A request by Philip Trong, applicant, on behalf of Harmony Public Schools, represented by Niat Behan, and please excuse me if I said that wrong, owner, for approval of a special exception as permitted by the Unified Development Code Ordinance number 2000-T to allow for a property with existing nonconformities to be platted. This has a general location of 2525 Reed Boulevard, Pearland, Texas. Do we have a staff report?
We do. Thank you, Chair. Katie Peterson will be providing the staff report on this item.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. If you want to skip, there we go. So just to summarize this request, you read it so eloquently off of the original slide. However, this is a request to allow a site that is already got an existing building on it to be platted with a structure that is within the setback line. So this is 2525 Reed Boulevard. There is no physical change to the proposed single-family residential lot or use, so they're not modifying the structure at all or how it is currently being used. It is a non-conforming front setback that is already an existing condition because of the right-of-way acquisition after the structure was built. So this structure did have a right-of-way acquisition that took part of the land. It did meet the original front setback. We made sure that this was properly noticed and did not receive any comments for or against the request. You can see here on this map, the section that we are discussing tonight is in the top left corner of this parcel. So the property is a combination of GB and GC, general business and general commercial zoning districts, but the portion of the property that we are discussing tonight, that is what is going to have the existing nonconformity, is all the way in the top left corner there, in that lighter shade of red, which is the GB, or general business zoning district. The uses that are surrounding the property are going to have the shopping center to the south there. There is a second residence that is just to the south of the lot where this is going to be located. Across the street is an existing residential subdivision. To the north is an auto part sales, and then it is undeveloped around the entirety of the parcel that is subject of the application tonight. However, behind the overall plat will be warehouse office and then undeveloped area as well. So the larger portion of this property, which is eventually going to be Harmony Schools, is currently undeveloped, but will be developed after the platting of this lot. Okay, quick history, it was annexed into the city of Pearland in 1997. That residential structure was constructed in 2001. The right-of-way acquisition happened between 2016 and 2018, which created that nonconformity. So it is currently not a platted lot, but it is in the review process. Plat 2469 has been submitted for city review. So once they get through this hurdle, they'll be able to move forward with the platting process of this site. This is an aerial view of it. So again, you can kind of see, it looks, if you're looking at this like a little person, it's the really long Pinocchio nose up there. At the top left side of your screen is where we are talking about the single family residential house. And there it's a little bit better described. So it's lot 1. This is the area in which the property is not meeting that 25-foot required front setback. So you can see highlighted in yellow the area which is not meeting that required setback. At the largest point of that non-conforming parcel, so the bottom part of the larger triangle there, it is 5.46 feet into the required 25-foot front setback. So it is not a whole lot, and it is less as you move north because the property line is at an angle to the structure. I've highlighted it here. It's a little bit harder to see on the big screen in red, so you can kind of see how it makes that angle, but it would be mostly just the front porch area, and it is kind of coming from where the porch intersects with the primary wall of the structure and tapers to that northernmost porch column as the property moves forward. With this, it meets the criteria number 4 under section 2737A, which is that the construction of the new structure on the property which has the existing nonconformity, it has been met. So this request is just to allow the property to be platted. It meets criterion 4 of that, which is what I showed you on the slide previous. And if the site were to have to come into compliance with the required front setback, then any portion that is in that front setback would have to be demolished. So that would impose a significant hardship on the property, which is an existing nonconformity and is minimally encroaching in that due to acquisition. So with that, staff recommends the approval of the special exception to allow for 2525 Reed Boulevard, a property with the existing nonconformity, to be platted.
Thank you. We have any persons wishing to speak for or against? Excuse me, we have an applicant presentation. Thank you. We have any persons wishing to speak for or against proposal? If not, we would like to move into staff and applicant and commission discussion. Any questions from the board?
I want to ask staff just a clarification question for my education. If this becomes platted or the plat's approved like this, then does that mean if there's any modification request in the future, this would be considered a conforming structure? This would not be an existing property with non-conforming.
It would be considered an existing nonconformity, but it would be a legal existing nonconformity. So this portion of that nonconformity can continue as it is until something goes to change that. So if they went to add on to the front of the structure, they would need to get a variance in order to allow for any further encroachment, but it could stay exactly as it was.
So the mere fact we're saying we're going to plat it this way doesn't confer any additional exemptions from it being a non-conforming status, right?
Correct. It just allows them to create the plat for this property and keep it in its existing location.
To my knowledge, this is the first time we've seen one where we were asked to conform or approve or disapprove a platting change. Interesting.
Correct. Any other questions or comments from the board? We'd like to move into consideration and possible action. Don, would you read them?
Yes, sir. Make a motion to approve variance 24-20 as presented.
It's been motioned. Is there a second? It's been motioned and second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. We'd like to move into our second item on the agenda. This is a consideration and possible action, VARZ 24-21, special exception for development to occur on a property with existing nonconformities. A request by John Fox, applicant, on behalf of St. Catherine of Alexandria Coptic Orthodox Church owner for approval of a special exception as permitted by the Unified Development Code, ordinance number 2000-T, to allow for development to occur on a site with existing nonconformities. This has a general location of 2539 Zappalak Road, Pearland. Never heard of that road before, Zappalak. Do we have a staff report?
We do. Thank you, Chair. Katie, the floor is yours.
If you were excited about one of those you're gonna see another one just now. So now you've seen two. This is a special exception to allow for the construction of a new structure on a property with an existing building that has a non-conforming side yard. So this is a site that has a structure on it. The structure is encroaching into the required 10-foot side setback because it was built as a residential structure. The residential structure in the R1 zoning district, that R1 zoning district has a side setback of 7.5 feet. There are certain uses which are permitted to be non-residential uses within the residential zoning district. One of those is a church or place of worship. I think it's church, temple, or place of worship. And this is a church use. It was approved through a CUP. And with that, when a non-residential use is being placed in a residential zoning district, it has to follow the setback requirements for the neighborhood services zoning district. Basically just giving it a little bit more buffer, making sure that anything that, even though it is something that has been considered to be appropriate for that residential zoning district, it's still taking into consideration the adjacent properties, the residential zoning district that it is sitting in. So with that, the existing structure that did have a 7.5 foot setback is now required as the church use associated with the conditional use permit to have a 10-foot side setback. This property is sitting about 8.2 feet away from the property line. So about 1 foot, 10 inches is the difference that it is sitting in. We did make sure that this was also properly noticed and received no public comment for or against. This is that R1 zoning district here. So you can see it's got PUD to the north. It has neighborhood services to the east. To the south, it's got some general commercial. And to the west, it has general business. We'll see that again here on the map that shows what's there. To the east, it is undeveloped currently. To the north is a cemetery and gardens. So that parcel that it's currently sitting on doesn't have any, the words are sitting on, doesn't have any development on it, but it is owned by the Memorial Gardens. Behind it, there are warehouses and commercial uses, mostly warehouse. There's one that's like an art store that would fall into that, just general commercial. To the south is an undeveloped parcel, and there's also a fast food restaurant. So that's Dairy Queen, if you're familiar with this general area. And then there's commercial restaurants and retail in that kind of L-shaped building at the very bottom corner. The history of this site is that it was annexed into the city in 1995. Their existing residential structure was built in 1983. That CUP I was discussing earlier was approved in 2023 with an extension granted in January of 24. So they're proposing a new building on the site to act as the sanctuary. So this building is separate from the structure that currently exists on the site. The CUP allows for the whole site to be used as church, which makes that residential structure that will be part of the church use now a nonconformity for the side setback. You cannot quite see it as well as you could on the other one because there's a tree line and a utility pole in the way on the straightforward, but that is a picture if you were standing on Zappalak Road, Zappalak Boulevard. And then the overall site plan there, you can see the tiny red line at the top of the screen there, and if you zoom in real far or lean your face as close to you can as the screen, you'll see the little yellow area which is sitting in that side setback. And because it's a little smaller, I've zoomed in for you here. So you can see it is sitting 8 foot 2 inches away from, 8 foot 2 inches from the property line, which puts it 1 foot 10 inches into that required setback. It is meeting the same criteria for special exception as the previous application heard tonight, where it is a property that already has a non-conforming structure. And in this case, they're proposing new construction towards the rear of the site. With it meeting the same criterion and having said that if this site does need to come into compliance, you would be having to remove a portion of the existing structure. With the cemetery use to the north of it, it is not going to affect any of the adjacent property owners with the 1 foot and change encroachment. So with that, staff recommends approval of this special exception to allow the construction of the new sanctuary on the property with the existing nonconformity.
Thank you. Is there an applicant presentation? Do we have any persons wishing to speak for or against proposal? Do we have any questions from the staff to the applicant or commission? Jerry, would you read that? We're going to move into consideration and possible action.
I make a motion to approve variance 24-21 as presented.
It's been motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. And this concludes the November 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustments meeting. It is 6:17 p.m.